Let's do this. Let's talk about this first, this story that comes from the Daily Beast, from the internationally renowned technologist, technical expert, and expert on the far right, Will Sommer.
Oh.
I'm kidding. He's none of those things. MAGA World's Freedom Phone, actually budget Chinese phone. MAGA influencers are pushing a phone preloaded with apps like Parler and Rumble that appears to be a vastly more expensive version of a phone made in China. The first thing I'm going to say to this, well, actually, the first thing I should say is Will Sommer is a political activist. Like, I don't take anything he says seriously, and I don't understand why there are people on the right, people who oppose censorship, who are like, well, Will Sommer of all people said it. Will Sommer has published false information in the past. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. The dude is not an honest actor. So why should I care if he's making some ridiculous argument in an article that's clearly an opinion, but not labeled opinion? Because this dude is just trying to probably grift. Now, the thing about the Daily Beast is they smear anybody and everything that's to the right of Stalin. So for some reason, this article comes out, and that's it. Now I've even got people in the chat right now saying it's a cheap Chinese knockoff. Have you tested the phone? Do you know anything about it? I don't, so I'm not going to make that assessment. But I can say a few things right off the bat. First, they say it's a knockoff of a cheap Chinese phone. Well, obviously, you know, we're sitting here with Erik, but I'll just say this before we get into it, and I'll ask. Let me just say, if this is the way I described it on my main channel. First of all, I get it. I haven't tested the phone. We want to do a forensic analysis and go through it. But if someone was selling a Chinese canvas and it was $5, you could buy it and order it off Amazon. And then if Ian painted me a beautiful picture of a lighthouse on a canvas, I would not expect to pay the same price for it. If someone takes a phone that costs $100 and then puts a custom operating system on it and preloaded software and provides the service and then charges more, that's just called free enterprise. It's called business. How is that a negative? And it's made in China. What isn't made in China? So these aren't arguments against the Freedom Phone. There certainly are questions and concerns. But we'll start with this. Is it a cheap Chinese knockoff of the Umidigi A9 Pro?
Absolutely not. We customize the phone itself, so that way, you know, that way it was quality. We looked at looked at the supply chain of the phone, of all the parts that come from it, just making sure everything's secure, everything's safe. But no, I mean, it's not. And then two, in addition to just it being a custom phone, we did our own custom operating system on it too.
Is it made in China?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is you can't make phones in the United States, which is terrible. I mean, even Motorola, they put $3 billion into opening up a factory back in the day for making smartphones. You know.
But didn't you tweet that it wasn't made in mainland China?
Yeah, it's in Hong Kong. It's out of Hong Kong.
Oh, okay.
So,
but unfortunately, that's China now.
No, yeah, exactly. When we feel like that was our best option, and I have family out in Hong Kong and everything. But yeah, I mean, you still get that. I mean, we get we get parts from Taiwan as well, but then yet they still call that China and all that. So I mean, it's just
China. You know, it's a special economic zone.
Exactly.
It's made by Umidigi.
We
Is that how you pronounce it?
We get I think so. Yeah. I mean, we get some of our stuff from Umidigi and all that stuff. But yeah, we partnered with them, and so we have a design lab in the United States, so that way we can. So I'll go through in the beginning of the process. So we actually wanted to create like a blockchain-based phone, which is, you know, a little bit marketing there, but my background is crypto, and that was the original thinking. So me and my design lab, which is here in the U.S., we were like, how do we do a phone? There's template designs of a phone that we could look at. There's other phones we wanted to look at and see what can we take the best of everything. And then we ended up putting something together, and we tried finding manufacturers in the U.S. to do it, but it was literally impossible to find manufacturers in the U.S. Like it's just, you know, because of terrible political choices made, you just can't make a phone in the U.S. and you need like $10 billion. Apple, they have hundreds of billions of dollars and they don't choose to do it. They could probably figure out that much money.
Well, let's try and get as technical as possible.
Yep.
Who manufactures the phone in Hong Kong? What company?
Umidigi. And then we get another factory as well, because I mean, not to sound marketing, but we did have high demand, so now we have another factory as well, so that way we're manufacturing stuff out of there.
But they're both Umidigi?
One is Umidigi, one's another one.
Oh, okay. What is that one?
That one, I mean, they just have a long, Hong Kong name and all that, but they're just basically to carry the demand that overflows. But yeah, we partnered with UmiDigi.
Well, can you say what company it is?
No, I mean I could, but I don't remember their name. Or I do remember their name in my head. I can see it, but it's a very Asian Chinese.
Well, that could be
name.
important. I mean, what if it's like a known company that works with the CCP or something?
They don't, and we looked into that. So
well.
And I guess don't take my word for it. But
yeah, we can't. I mean, UmiDigi is one thing. I can be like, oh, okay, it's a company that makes phones. But now there's like this mystery other company. We don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, they're just an overflow factory that does production and all that. And we talked with them. We looked at what they do, and they have no connections to the CCP or anything.
Well, that's tough. How are people supposed to trust the phone now if you can't even say where it's made?
Well, I mean, it's made in Hong Kong and all that. But
by who?
By who? I mean, UmiDigi, and then yeah, I mean, they're just a group of people that do increase production.
The other company.
It. Yeah, and then we have representatives
publicly
out in Hong Kong,
and like you can look at the name of the company and all that stuff, and like
how
do people find out about that?
I'll put it on our website right after this. No worries.
All right. Well, there you go.
On our spec sheet, we're going to be adding sourcing of where we get every single part from.
Right on.
Hey, just to clarify, Apple and Google also make their phones in China, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the real stories. And in my opinion, I think Apple chooses not to make their phones in the United States because, unfortunately, I don't have billions of dollars. Like Motorola, they tried doing it with $3 billion, and they couldn't do it back in the day. I think they were doing that with the Moto X, etc. Apple, they have tens of billions of dollars. I think it was there was a former president that asked Apple to actually make phones in the U.S. because they, it would be like a $30 billion endeavor, in my opinion, and they choose not to. So that's, I feel like, the real story of these companies is they choose not to make stuff in the U.S. And when you're an upstart and you don't have tens of billions of dollars to be able to like set up brand new factories in the United States, you're screwed.
So one of the other things they mention in the Daily Beast article is that there's no specs, but you immediately just put the specs on the website.
Yeah, the specs are on the website, and you can look at them and everything.
What's the website? FreedomPhone?
FreedomPhone.com. So feel free to look in the specs and everything.
Yeah, I looked at the specs. I'm kind of just like, okay, like there are specs.
Yeah,
I don't understand. I suppose the argument is if people didn't know the specs, they didn't know what they were buying. But I find that also kind of weird because I'm like, most people don't know what any of this stuff means.
Yeah.
Like, f8 megapixels, R13 plus 2 MP. Like most people are going to be like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to look at that. They're not know what they're talking about.
What is that? R13 plus 2 plus 2?
So that's R13. So that's like front-facing camera and rear-facing camera. So the F is front, R is rear-facing.
And then plus 2 means that there's 2 cameras.
Plus 2, and there's multiple cameras on the back. So,
what do the multiple cameras do? What are they for?
I feel these days, because you need phones that work with augmented reality, that takes usually multiple cameras. And then, be able to have like depth in your photos. Multiple cameras just all help with that. So,
zoom in, zoom out.
Yeah, exactly. So just being able to match the phone, being able to match phones of today with something good and quality.
I couldn't help but notice there's no 5G though.
There's no 5G. Yeah, 5G is just like real genuine 5G is just in like a few blocks in a few cities, and all that. So, and we started on this phone like a year ago.
Yeah, you guys were explaining to me before the show that 5G phones are different than the 5 gigahertz network.
Yes.
That has confused me for years. I had no idea until tonight.
So here's the craziest thing to me is the amount of smear pieces that have popped up, and that right away I'm just like, that's a red flag. Mm-hmm. It's like when new phones come out from Google or from whoever else, Huawei. Someone will be like, this phone sucks. Someone will be like, well, there's the pros and the cons. I've seen so many tech reviews and I've seen so many devices. To see all of these companies, all these news outlets, every single one line up in lockstep with the advice not to buy the phone, I was like, now that I find very strange considering they've never tested the phone and there's really no issue to be upset with it. Mm-hmm. If the phone doesn't do what it says, it's a phone, whatever. I've developed a few apps myself with my one of my business partners. I've done a ton of work in mobile, hacking phones and hacking other devices, making programs, and I've probably owned like 1,000 different smartphones throughout the production stuff we've done. There's so many different kinds, and what people got to realize too, when you travel, and this is back in the day, they use different frequencies for all the cell antennas. So when I would go to like Turkey, The specific frequency, I'd have to check to make sure certain devices worked with certain phones. GSM typically worked in most places, so getting a GSM phone would be okay. But like Ukraine was actually CDMA, so I'd have to go and buy a new phone. And they got phones that you can buy from Samsung in Eastern Europe, you can't buy in the United States. And they're cheap. And anyway, I'm just like, okay, so it's a phone. If somebody wants to buy it because it's got OA on it, or Parler, or Newsmax, or whatever, what's the problem? Now, it could be that all of these news outlets are simply just, hey, here's an other. Let's smear them because we'll get clicks. Their audience expects to hate Trump. They called you MAGA world. They're trying to put you in that category simply for, the kinds of sites that are or apps that are put on the phone. So maybe it's just a grift. They all decided it's fair game, they can attack you, and you're not going to do anything about it. And you know what? Hey, the reality is, I think most people, James O'Keefe is probably the only person who actually does sue for defamation and go after people.
Bloomberg also.
And who?
Bloomberg.
Michael
Bloomberg, yeah. I think
he sues for defamation a lot?
Yeah.
Well, but I'm talking about the right. James O'Keefe's like the only one who does it. Okay,
Yeah.
to be fair, Candace Owens, we'll talk about that in a bit, just had her suit dismissed. But very few people try. And one of the most annoying things is whenever I've dealt with defamation, the advice I usually get from people on the right is just ignore it, blah, 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 because, and I'm like, why? Just sue and make your argument, make a better argument, improve your arguments, and find the vector in which you can go after the people who are lying. But anyway, thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.